Speaking of Joe Biden's political priorities, it is extremely odd to hear Democrats on the one hand say that there is no greater priority in the world than making sure Trump doesn't return to power. If he returns to power, he's going to implement a white supremacist dictatorship. He's going to end all American democracy. He's going to be a Hitler figure. You would think anyone who really believes that would be willing to do anything and everything to make sure they win this 2024 election. Now, they are willing to do a lot of things. They're pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into a preposterous candidate called Nikki Haley. They are trying to strike Trump from the ballot to prevent people from voting for him. They're trying to imprison Trump, all the things we've gone through. But one of the things that is really endangering Joe Biden's political prospects is the fact that huge numbers of people in his own party on whom he is relying, not only to be willing to vote for him, but to get up and be passionate and go to the polls and vote for him, without whom he has no chance for re-election, aren't just opposed to his policy of supporting Israel, but are so vehemently opposed to it that they are saying over and over now that they will not vote for Joe Biden because they believe that what he's doing in Gaza and in Israel by supporting Israel and arming and funding it constitutes genocide. And once you reach that conclusion, it is very difficult to say, well, I believe Biden is guilty of genocide, but I'm still going to vote for him on a lesser of two evils rationale. What is actually the lesser evil once you accuse somebody of genocide? And you could see this coming from a mile away. You've had Arab and Muslim voters in key swing states like Michigan saying now for months, we are not voting for Joe Biden. And you've had left-wing voters and young voters who are horrified by Biden's steadfast support for Israel who are saying the same thing. And I think there was a time for a month or so when the Biden White House did not take seriously the claim that these voters wouldn't snap into line because, understandably, it's true that left-wing voters in the United States have a very strong tendency to snap into line and do what they're told and go vote for the Democrats when they're told to, no matter how angry they are along the way. But this seems to be reaching a point of kind of sustained rage, of the kind of anger that Democrats had to Lyndon Johnson during the Vietnam War that forced Lyndon Johnson not to seek re-election. It really is starting to reach that level of sustained protest. Everywhere Democratic Party office holders go, they're interrupted by protesters, angry protesters, accusing them of genocide. Leave aside for the moment whatever your views are on the war and whether you support Biden's arming and financing of Israel. I'm just saying politically, this has become a serious risk. Here from the Wall Street Journal today, the headline, Biden aides fret that support for Israel will hurt his re-election prospects. The president is seeing routine pro-Palestinian protests at his campaign event. Quote, some of President Biden's senior aides are becoming increasingly worried that his support for Israel's war in Gaza risks damaging his re-election prospects amid cratering support from young voters. Biden advisors are divided on the seriousness of the political threat. Some see a real risk that disillusioned young voters will stay home because of the Israel issue and because of other concerns about the president. Other aides are confident that most of those voters will end up giving priority to other issues above Israel and that they will vote for Biden rather than risk another Trump administration. Pro-Palestinian protests aimed at the president are getting increasingly loud. Activists opposing Israel's military offensive in Gaza interrupted Biden during a rally Wednesday with auto workers a day after they heckled him at a campaign speech, back-to-back outbursts that represent the loudest protest movement Biden has faced since taking office. Quote, I don't think there's going to be anywhere that Biden goes during this campaign where he won't be disrupted or where there won't be dissent, said Sandra Tamari, the executive director of the Abala Justice Project, a U.S.-based organization that advocates for Palestinian rights and has participated in some of the protests. Now, the thing about it is, you don't actually need huge amounts of people being willing to stay home. You're going to have a very coordinated campaign on the part of all these left-wing YouTubers and Twitch streamers who love to posture as rebels of the Democratic Party and critics of the Democratic Party, who keep their access and their respectability among Democratic voters by always at the end of the day saying, look, I know you're mad at Democrats, I'm mad at Democrats, but our duty is to go and vote for Biden no matter how angry we are at him because Trump is this once-in-a-lifetime monster. That's become the role of Bernie Sanders and AOC, to say to these kinds of people, oh, look, we're like you. We're just as angry about this as you are, but we're staying in the Democratic Party because we know that Trump is so much worse, and therefore you should do that. It's just that I don't think it's going to work this time, at least. And again, you only need a small number of people, given how closely contested these key swing states are in places like Michigan and Pennsylvania, in order to swing the state in one direction or another. Look at this polling data. It's kind of amazing. From The Guardian, just this week, there's the headline. More than 1/3 of Americans believe Israel is committing genocide, poll shows. A poll released Wednesday shows divisions by age and political lines, with 35% of Americans overall saying that the campaign against Palestinians is genocide. Now, just to underscore how remarkable it is, I don't think there is a single person who has any kind of a prominent platform in corporate media, meaning who writes on an opinion page for the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, or who hosts a news show on Sunday or a cable show, who even gets near that opinion, who even gets near saying that what Israel is doing in Gaza is genocide. I think anyone who did that would probably lose their job. In fact, the three harshest critics of Israel on MSNBC were removed from their own shows following the October 7th attack, and then Mehdi Hassan, probably the most vocal critic of Israel, is now no longer with MSNBC because they took away his show. And yet 35% of Americans have concluded, with no real media representation, in the corporate media at least, that Israel is committing genocide. And obviously, if you think that, you know that it's the Biden administration feeding Israel the arms and the money to commit this genocide. And that just has to have a very significant effect on whether or not you're willing to go and vote for Joe Biden. If this were the case that this was 2021 and the election were 3 years away, then maybe you could have confidence that, look, a lot's going to happen between now and then. The war's going to end. People are going to forget about their anger. This war is not ending anytime soon. We're already in 2024. The election is only 9 months away. The gamble that they're going to be able to somehow divert the rage that people have at Joe Biden for supporting Israel so steadfastly in everything that it's doing is a very high gamble. The article goes on, quote, according to The Economist and YouGov poll, roughly equal numbers of adults believe Israel's military campaign against Palestinians, which is estimated to have killed more than 25,000 people since 7th of October, amounts to genocide. 35% say it is, 36% say it isn't, with 29% undecided. Among younger Americans and along political lines, divisions are more prominent. About half of those surveyed, aged 18 to 29, 49% say Israel is committing genocide, with 24% disagreeing. The figures are broadly similar for registered Democrats, who believe 49 to 21% in the genocide characterization, while 30% are undecided. Republicans are far more supportive of Israel's actions, with 57% of respondents saying there is no genocide, only 18% saying there is. Now, that's the problem. Joe Biden's policy is supported overwhelmingly by Republican voters in Israel. And Republican voters are not going to vote for Joe Biden simply because he supports Israel, because they're very confident that whoever the Republican nominee is will as well. The danger for Biden is that there's not many votes that he can attract through the support for Israel. The danger is that he can lose a lot by continuing to not just support Israel, but support Israel in a way that no other government, no other country on this planet is doing. Here from AP is a report on what happened when he visited Michigan yesterday. Biden re-election campaign team travels to Michigan but is shunned by some Arab American leaders. Julie Chavez Rodriguez, head of Biden's re-election campaign, led a group of advisors to the Dearborn area where some Arab American leaders declined to sit down with them, citing continued anger over the president being too supportive of Israel in its war with Hamas. Other activists went further as hundreds attended an event urging voters to, quote, abandon Biden ahead of November that was timed to coincide with the visit. A meeting between Rodriguez and Arab American and Muslim leaders was canceled after pushback within the community. Dearborn Mayor Abdullah Hamad took to X, formerly Twitter, to sarcastically note Rodriguez's travel while criticizing Biden for urging congressional leaders to quickly approve a $20 billion sale of F-16 fighter jets to Turkey. Quote, little bit of advice. If you're planning on sending campaign officials to convince the Arab American community on why they should vote for your candidate, don't do it on the same day you announce selling fighter jets to the tyrants murdering our family members, he wrote. You're not just playing here with political debate. You're playing here with deeply held convictions that are religious and cultural and nationalistic in nature. And that's why I'm far from convinced that they're going to be able to scare these people out of this simply by waving around the boogeyman of Trump. Because from this perspective, from people who see things this way, it's hard to get worse. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.